Save Our Kids is an opportunity for you to be introduced to a few school and student helpers. If there is a space or a place to improve the lives of our children, we know a few families and business owners who have made it their business to answer the call for help and provide a solution to those challenges that impact our children and eventually us all. We could not just choose one kiddo to save, so we are asking for your help to reach more. Join Keeping Your Kids Safe as we identify some of the problems and share a few solutions that have been created just for you. Okay, close. All right, we made it. Or shall I say I made it? You know, every once in a while, some strange things happen. And then I'm like, oh, by the skin of my teeth. So welcome, friends, new friends, consistent friends. How are you doing today?
You made it. Good, how are you?
We are good. How are you?
All right. Energy, yes, I am okay. I am definitely psyched for this. This is a great conversation. So I'm going to start by saying thank you for spending the time with me today to have a conversation about something that's very, very important. You know, I also want to thank the village. So our community consists of parents, village, and schools. And all collectively together, it is our responsibility to ensure that the best outcome for each one of our children. And I want to say thank you to all of those educators because they're doing a great job. And then we'll start with the quote, right? I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And that was Maya Angelou. And it's very important to know because as long as we have children in our camps, we have to pay attention to what is happening, right? And how you make them feel, because that's a big thing. All right, so before we can create anything that we need, we have to first understand the problems that we are solving for. All of us understand that, the numbers drive the improvement, period. You cannot do anything unless you understand that there is a challenge in front of us. So here we go. If in the United States there are 18 million families that feed into 53 million children that go to K through 12 schools every single school year, with only 4 million teachers across 90,000 schools in the US, with 35% of them wanting to quit, we know that we are outnumbered by those children, right? So we realize all of those children are coming from a family that are going into a school system. So right now we are at 53 million. In 2021, we are at 46 million, and estimated in 2031, we will decline to 46.9 million. That is a cry saying that there is something going on in the educational system that is not having those numbers grow, but they are on a steady decline, and it's very deep. A lot of teachers are claiming that the workload is too much that they have to lean into, don't feel empowered to teach, and the pay becomes part of the reason why they want to quit. But for this group specifically, it's important to understand that low reading and math skills are impacting our children and our households, period. So if we look at approximately 40% of students across the nation cannot read on basic level, that is 13 million children. So when we do the math, 13 million children, almost half living in urban areas cannot read on basic level. Is that intentional, do you think? That's something we should probably ask about. Almost 70% of low-income fourth graders cannot read on basic level. There's 22 million children. Are you serious? Most of us are having a hard time with that, and we are all impacted by that, period. So we can talk a little bit about bullying and the parents' involvement. Oh, you guys are a good one. So parents' involvement, the one thing that bothered me about this was bring your own devices. So when you get into bring your own devices and you are supplying the devices that will take the place of the books that they've supplied before, where did that money go? That's a very good question for me. School supplies. So school supplies is a big one. 25 students in a class, 20% brings a list that cover half of the school year. Teachers have to spend out of their own pockets sometimes or request more from home. So that's a problem. Those are things that we really need to be concerned about. So I want to invite each one of you to come and talk a little bit about what you do and then we can get into the conversation about, the different things, different challenges and concerns you have going into the school year. So we will go ahead. Let's see if I do this right. Nope. Oh yeah, I did. All right. So we'll go with D first. So D, share with us a little bit about you and what you're up to.
Yeah, so thank you, Tabitha, for having me. I really appreciate being on here. So my name is Dee. I'm the managing director at Ignite Purpose USA. So essentially, I help individuals challenge their old belief systems, and those belief systems are made during our childhood. So challenge their old belief systems that might be holding them back in their personal and professional lives. I grew up with undiagnosed ADHD. So I didn't have the best coping mechanisms during that time. So that is something that's really important to me, is providing coping mechanisms for specifically for adults, but those adults were children once, and those adults also have children as well. So being a parent of a neurodiverse child and being neurodiverse myself, I'm always concerned about bullying, and I'm concerned about really children saying really mean things and not understanding what those things really mean. And then I worry about the children who do not have a safe place to talk about those feelings. So really, I'm here as an advocate for really providing coaching within the school system for children, not only neurodiverse children, but children in general and their parents as well, to help them through these, hard times like bullying.
That's pretty cool. I mean, first of all, I didn't even know that. So I too also, I have a child that's on a spectrum as well. So it's really important that we do support those families and those teachers, because it's a special skill to deal with children that are neurodiverse, right? But at the same time, they're still worth it. So we just have to go about it a different way. So I'm glad you're here, Dee. This will be amazing. So it'll be amazing. All right, Jermel, did I do that? You're up. Oy.
Thank you for having me, Tabitha, and excited to share the stage with Dee and Nora as well. Name of my company is Bells Education, but just a little bit about us is I grew up in a small town, roughly 3,000 people, and growing up in this town that was segregated in the South, railroad track running through the town, just presented its own challenges. Being at school, having a lot of racial tension, experiencing a lot of domestic violence, watching two cousins of mine being killed due to domestic violence. When I graduated high school, I went to the University of Arkansas to play football and end up quitting and joining the Air Force. But I learned a lot during my years in the Air Force about just leadership and growing up. And it provided a safe haven for me, and it provided a lot of guidance and direction for me. And so after getting my master's in education, started a program called, actually The Quote, when you was talking about quotes over there, I got a nonprofit title for Quote. But it evolved into Bells Education. It's all about identity. That's what we hang our hat on, is trying to help kids understand who they are. And so we wear this shirt, I am me, know who you are. That's what it's about. Like, what's the foundation? What's the core? Who am I? Right? Because earlier you're reading the stats about how these kids are not reading on grade level. And there's so many other obstacles present themselves that are distractions. And so once they kind of get behind the 8 ball, so to speak, it's really hard to catch up. And there's a lot of mental challenges that present themselves. So with Bells Education, we just really try to help work with schools and other organizations when it comes to making sure we're creating a safe and secure learning environment, and teaching those teachers how to connect with their kids, but also implement this IME program within schools to help kids understand who am I, and giving them that confidence to know that they can succeed through all life challenges. So just a quick snippet of who we are. Thank you again for having me, Tap.
Well, this is pretty cool. I think that we're going to spend a lot of time together. I feel like that what you're doing is very important, because at the end of the day, you'll hear me talk about parent 1, home, parent 2. I don't know, my thing just went off. Parent 2 is school. And at the end of the day, collectively, we can make an impact, but we first have to stop trying to tear away the child's identity. We have to figure out how to provide them the identity that they're meant to have versus the one that everybody else says that they should have. So I'm glad you're here. Yay. All right, Nora, you're up.
Thanks for having me, Tabitha. Hey, everyone who's tuning in. I'm Nora Denuzo. I'm the founder of Pitcher. And Pitcher is a growth strategy consultancy for small businesses. So I would be not so much in the education sector myself, but working with companies like Tabitha's and Dee's and Jarmel's to make sure that they can grow and succeed and get their message out to the world. So my background is working for ad agencies. And one thing I could never do there was to work with small businesses. And by small, I mean anything under 25 million in annual revenue, which is every startup ever. And so now I'm about to celebrate my 2-year anniversary of being an entrepreneur for the first time, being out on my own. And I've forged a lot of great relationships with founders, and I love to support the work that y'all are doing. And I am a public school graduate. My kids are in public school now. My father was a public school educator, and my mother-in-law was a public school educator. So I have a lot of heart for the public school system and public education. However, I do understand a lot of what the flaws are. I've been seeing it play out for years and now experiencing it firsthand as a parent. So I also am a strong believer that we need to be constantly questioning the status quo. And just because a system exists doesn't mean it is a good system. So, I think, the public schools are doing a lot of amazing things for our kids, but also there is room for improvement. And I'm talking with a friend about starting a new live show called Needs Improvement, because there's a lot of things in our world that do. So, public schools, and we are working on it.
Yes, that is amazing. That's pretty cool, Nora. First of all, you're going to give us a different type of perspective. I'm excited about this conversation because this one's going to be a good one for sure. Okay, so then there's me. Just me. So again, for those who do not know me, my name is Tabitha Barron. I am the founder of Keeping Your Kids Safe. At the end of the day, the quote landed so well because when you make a child feel unseen, unheard, and disrespected, you have a tendency to allow that to be validated through life experiences. And dismissal is one of those areas where when we shut children down, the way we do it makes them feel like their voice doesn't count or is not worth it. So we have to be careful. And our goal here is to keep your school out of the headlines by helping each of your children effectively communicate their way home from school. You as a parent will get a text message during the process. The administrators get an instantaneous notification of whatever mistake they may be making at the time. And then everybody's all on the same page. We do cover walkers and bikers, car riders, childcare bus riders, and the yellow bus riders, because our whole entire premise is we are keeping your kids safe. Okay, so now that we have all of our introductions, let's see where we're going to go now. Ooh, okay, cool, that worked. Sometimes it doesn't always work. All right, so I love the fact that, Nora, you have all of this experience coming from everywhere, right? Okay, one of the things I want to make sure I'm being very clear about is that I do not believe that teachers and administrators and any decision maker is maliciously intending to do harm to our children. That is 100% not the message I want to send. What I want to say and the message I want to send is there's a reason why I tell you how many students are going to school. I only have 2 children. Good Lord, thank goodness. I got 2 hands, 2 eyes, 2 children. Principals have 500, 900, and 1,600 children at one time. When you see how they have to scramble and figure this stuff out, those are the people we're working to help improve. So if you want them to do more work, you have to give them an efficient way to do it. And I think that's what I would like to know, how to do that. But the thing is very important. The numbers, the statistics are used as a way to feed and fix those things that are broken. So when you have a steady decline of students attending school, and next stats I'll look up and I'll figure out private versus public, When you have a steady decline, you have to figure out what that decline is. And it is not, and I repeat, it is not meant for you to give your children up at the age of 3 to go into the school system. So I'll start there. How do you feel about the children being able to go into school at the age of 3 versus waiting until the age of 5? Anybody can have it.
So my kids didn't go into school, but they were in preschool and a daycare. And I personally, from my experience, I found it amazing that they were able to have that because I felt like they were more prepared in kindergarten. But I don't really have anything to compare it to because both of my kids went through that.
Okay. So right now they're talking about universal pre-K. Primarily, I heard a lot of that up in the PA area, DC and stuff like that. But my take on this is that at the end of the day, a 3-year-old does not know how to do all the things a 5-year-old should know how to do by the time they enter school. If the rules of engagement say you cannot be in the bathroom with a child, then you can't accept a 3-year-old because they do not wipe themselves right. They don't clean their hands. And I was just in the school and the principal stopped the little boy and said, "Did you wash your hands?" He said, "No." She said, "Get to that sink," right? So there are things that are definitely needed to maintain in the home up until the age of 5. And if you, perfect example, said, they need to go to preschool for a little bit, that's actually you reaching out and saying, "I need a little bit of help and support for this period of time while I go and make some money and come back and be able to feed this little one," right? Yeah. But they still were nurturing. This is a nurturing group. Preschools and childcares are kind of a nurturing team. So that's what that is. But anybody else have any other comments about a 3-year-old going into elementary school or what is it, primary schools?
Yeah, I'll share that my daughter is 7, she's in 2nd grade. My son, Leo, is 4 and he's in pre-K or transitioning to kindergarten. He'll be a kindergartner next year. And I mean, he's in private, like through kinder care. And I love that he has the opportunity for socialization, but I agree with you, Tabitha, like what is expected of my daughter in public school, to take care of herself and what would be expected of my son. I mean, I still have to wipe him sometimes. So I know exactly what you're saying. And I mean, the kinds of like emotional highs and lows that, a 3 or a 4-year-old goes to, and even just being able to regulate themselves is kind of a different level and type of care. So I think I love the idea of like the equitability of there being a public care option for 3 and 4-year-olds that is outside of private that would be covered. But I hear your concerns about, how does that work in practicality when there's certain things in the public school system that would be not an option in terms of making sure that 3 and 4-year-olds get the best possible care that they need.
Yeah. So, Ebony, thank you for joining us. So universal pre-K is scary. It seems like a cattle call versus educational unit. I can tell you that, again, numbers are what they are. They are losing numbers. So remember, I named off the stats. So in order to fill the gap, you fill it with people that you know are coming your direction anyway. So you open up the door for it to be a little bit earlier. Here's a problem I have with that. So I have a few problems, right? One, you have 5 years to get your kids set. They're going to be set in their personality by the age of 5. They're pretty much good to go, right? Whatever shenanigans that they show you at the age of 5, that's going to show up for the rest of their life, okay? There's still some traits of that. But when you take a child at the age of 3 and put them in school 2 years prior to when they would initially go in, the school has the ability to pour in the balance of 2 years where you lose control over that child at that point. School has turned into, I feel like, has kind of turned into one of those things where it's a manufacturer. You put them in one way and they come out another way. And then they're positioned and pointed in a direction that's supporting the financial benefit of those other ones. So I think that that's what my primary challenge is with all of that, is that I need to make sure that my child from 0 to 5 has the value systems that I would like to see in them. I do not wish for them to be robots. I do not wish for them to be somebody's cattle, to be counted anywhere, shape, or form. And by taking the child out of the home earlier, I think has a potential to be more deadly to the family. So remember, this is about the community. Parent 1 is home, parent 2 is school, parent 3 are the bonus parent is the campus. I mean, no, sorry, community, right? Those 3 have helped raise many, many children. And when we don't do those right things, we're going to run into that problem, right? So that's why I say it that way. When I just don't like what's happening. They're trying to fill the gap because they're losing the students by filling the gap. They go ahead and pull in people earlier and do that. They take your value systems out, pour in their value systems, and now you do not understand or recognize the child you birthed. That's something I know I thought about. Go ahead, Jermel. Yes.
I think, like are you saying, with keeping your kids safe, if you begin with parent 1, one thing that's really lacking is parents really having a plan for their kids. And so we have these kids, and then we just understand there's a school system out there, and from kindergarten through 12th grade, almost like we expecting them to educate them. And it kind of takes away some of the accountability for the parent. But when you really be intentional about creating a plan for your child and knowing that, hey, this is how I'm gonna set my child up for success. These are the values, like you're alluding to. This is what I want to try to, the track I want to try to put them on. Then that helps guide you with, should my child be going to school at 3 versus 5? The problem I see a lot of times, especially a former school teacher, is if you start putting the kids in at 3, they continue to push down curriculum and they continue to overload these kids. And that's when they really get behind, because when I was coming through school, I'm a math teacher. So when we would learn central tendencies, mean, median, and mode, I didn't see that till I think junior high, maybe high school. And then when I started teaching and I went back and did my student internship, I started seeing it in 5th and 6th grade. And then so it's like the amount of information that they're receiving is just getting dropped down, and they're trying to push more and more. So if you take a kid that's 5 years and still just trying to figure out how to smile, how to laugh, just how to play, and then all of a sudden now, can you read this sentence? It's going to be a lot for a kid to try to figure it out. And then the numbers going to continue to push, hey, this kid is behind. Then teachers going to continue to feel more pressure. And then you also going to have teachers like, I'm ready to quit. And so, but that's my opinion.
I think that's a good point, right? And I get it. So you bring up where we're going to go next, right? Is the fact that they're shoving all this curriculum down their throat. But here's the thing. You mentioned the fact that the parents don't have a plan. First, parent the child you receive, not the child you want. Please stop, parents. Please stop making these children into little mini yous. They're not mini yous. They're here for a reason. And if we don't get our ego in check, these kids, that's why they're breaking free. They're like, I don't want to be bothered with this. The plan has to be a plan that's conducive to their growth and what they want to do. However, education, these people, what my thing is, stop blocking the parents, right? We are supposed to be in this together. We have to work together. In order to work together, that means that invite the parents in, open up those lines of communication, talk to the parents and say, okay, together we can make this happen. Schools are not babysitters. I get that. You're responsible for a lot more, the emotional support and education, but parents are responsible for so much more too. And it has to be a partnership. But my story is this. My daughter, when I think we were living in, I want to say we were living in North Carolina at the time. And I remember that, no, I'm sorry, it was Illinois. my daughter's teacher was like, I'm not receiving parent help. I need parent support. And she was just on this little rant. And I was like, no problem. I'm a new mom. Whatever. I'm going to come help you. No, I don't want your help. Okay, lady, you can't have it both ways, right? You got one or the other. You can't say that you want help, but then when the help shows up, I don't want your help. And I was willing to do what she wanted. So how are parents able to go in and help and understand how to build a plan for their child's future as far as education is concerned? Because that's a big thing. A lot of parents don't know.
I know for me, one of my mentors, Dr. Vita McLean, that's what she wrote. She wrote a book called The Intentional Parenting Plan. And it's just a guide on helping parents like, hey, what's the vision? Even being a former athlete, you see all the time, like you were saying, that parents try to live through their kids and they want to relive this dream that they had for themselves, but not really look at the personality of their child, see what they get from both parents, and then embrace it and build upon it and guide them and nurture it, right? But there's like, no, I missed out on this opportunity in life, so let me create this imagery in this moment for this child. But then it's really hard. I mean, because we are almost selfish by nature. But if you really can just step back and be like, how do I set my child up for success? And what is the plan? What are the values? What do we want to stick to? What are the boundaries, right? How are we creating a safe place here? That's critical. But like you said, I highly suggest that book. I'll drop it in the link here in a second.
Go ahead, put that out there so that people can go look for it, because we're here. We're talking about a problem or a challenge, an opportunity. We're bringing the solution to it as well, because that's the problem. We always have, I'm angry about this. I'm angry about that. Do something, do something, do something. And then we say, then the person is at a loss. Remember, when do you open up your umbrella? When it starts to rain, or when the downpour is so bad, then you're fighting to get it up, right? So we have to be careful, and we have to be mindful that we can't keep asking people to do stuff when they're being beaten down and then expect them to come up with a solution. It doesn't work. So we want to say, here's a challenge, here's something we have identified, and here's a potential solution. And that's why all of my friends here today, because I think that that's important. So we have, Ebony, awesome. So essentially we're nurturing the whole person in little individuals' personalities is where we are going. This is true. Does anybody else want to comment on this? Because this is very, very true. I do not like it. Children need to be children. I used to tell mine all the time. They were like, I'm worried about this and I'm worried about that. I'm worried about the bills. I'm worried about the food. I was like, pause. How old are you? They would give me their age. And I was like, your job is to figure out how to be the best 9-year-old you can be and figure out that job description. I got the rest. So I force my children into a position so that they can be a kid, because adulthood lasts way longer than childhood. So I agree. Anybody else have anything?
I'll share that, like, I love, Jarmel, what you said about like having a plan for your kids. And I don't think the plan has to be very prescriptive or tight. Like, it can be pretty broad ranging and loose. As a parent, like, I have 2 objectives with my kids. And what I do is I try to see where my objectives align with what the school is doing for them. And if there's gaps, I fill it with what I want them to know. And if it's aligned, then I try to reinforce what they're hearing at school. So my number one objective for my kids is that they grow up to be kind people, period. I tell them all the time, I don't care if you're smart. I don't care if you're talented. I don't care if you're beautiful. I care that you're kind. Anyone has the capacity to be kind, but we have to work on it. So you work on your kindness. And there's a lot, we were talking a little bit earlier about anti-bullying. And I really appreciate that is an initiative that's being pushed by my kids' public school. So, I pay attention and I listen when my daughter talks about bullies that she's experiencing or her friends are experiencing and what those feelings are like for her and how she's dealing with that experience. They also have a program at my daughter's school. It's like the night of the month because it's McKnight Elementary School. And the dimensions are being kind, courageous, motivated, and responsible. So like, I love that they lead with kind. So I see that the school is reinforcing kindness. Like, I'm on board with that. The other objective for my children is that I want to raise anti-racist children. So I look actively at my school system and what are they doing to make sure that books aren't being banned, that anti-racism is being promoted, that we are not, raising colorblind children. We are talking about our differences. We are embracing difference, but also acknowledging that it exists, and also acknowledging that, white people in our country have unearned social privilege and advantage simply by being born white. And so if I don't see the school talking about that, I talk to my kids about that. I've talked to my daughter about George Floyd's murder. I know that some of this is not deemed age appropriate. People will say, you're talking to your daughter about someone's murder. Yes, I am. Yes, I am. Because guess what? Black parents do not have this option not to have these talks with their kids. And so white people need to step up and do the same. So I don't doubt that my school system is teaching my kid how to be kind. I'm not sure they're teaching them how to be anti-racist. So that's the gap I'm going to fill. I can see that they're teaching her how to be kind and reinforcing that. But the other part, I'm going to do the work myself.
That's good. I like that because even for my children, my son on a spectrum, of course, and he went into the school system early. He had no choice because we had no speech. I had nothing. I mean, you're talking about pure silence, right? And it was deafening. So he had to go into school early because we just had to get back what he had lost. But I remember them telling me that I was like, well, what about writing? I think I've said this before about writing. And I said, who's teaching him how to write? They were like, no, we don't do that. We only work on the gross motor skills. I was like, what? Okay. So I'm not going to chastise you for this. Okay. What I'm going to say is thank you very much for the heads up. And I went home and I created a game for him that he would like to play. I figured out what he wanted, what he liked, and I created something for him that would help him because these two fingers are very necessary for writing. So once I did that, we got rid of hand over hand. That is the beauty of having a relationship that you can co-parent with every single child. So that's extremely, extremely important. So that is very, very good. So Jermel did us a favor and he gave us the link that we can go and take a look or connect with this person. You want to tell us a little bit about this, Jermel? Who's this person?
So the first, Dr. Vita Pendleton, she was actually the director of education department at Arkansas State University. Amazing woman, actually got me into teaching. But just really passionate about parents being educated on being able to do what's best for their kids. And so I took my hat to her. Amazing person.
Nice. And this is the book you were talking about. You just gave it to that. Hi, Phil. I love the fact you're here. So life is hard. Parent is harder. Overseeing 1,000 children in a school is super difficult. Has anybody been to school during dismissal? I do this. As soon as they show up, I do this. Oh my gosh, there are so many of them. Because I was like, I am sorry. I have a newfound respect for them because what I didn't realize is that you're calling us. If I'm calling the school, 20 other people are calling the school too. If I'm coming to the school, 70 other people are coming to the school. So we have to remember that. So it's important for everyone who is have those challenges and things like that to actually ask for help or say to your district, hey, this is a lot and we can actually use a little bit of help here. And I think that will help out a whole lot for sure. So there's a Phil, awesome and kind advice. I like what Nora said. Nora said, I don't care about the rest of that. I just need you to be kind. And so that is a skill that is not taught in school, but can be validated and reinforced by the second parent, by the school system, and by the community. Because a kinder heart, it has a lot more longevity when we do that. Navita. So parents requires, there you go, D. Parents require coaching and support each step of bringing up a child. Be it a small kid or a teen entering college, bringing up a child is difficult, but it is easy to get confused, overwhelmed, and disturbed. The mantra is always not to hesitate to ask for help. But here's the thing. I love that. I love it, love it, love it. And Dee says, yes, I will help you and I will coach you. But if you're going to ask for help, you have to be willing to listen to the answer.
Oh, that's huge. That's huge. Especially when you're, in my line of business, I talk to a lot of people that don't recognize right away that there's even an issue in the first place. And it's because they're so conditioned from whatever their experience was, through childhood and adolescence and coming up, they're still looking through that old lens. And, it's 2023. We need an updated lens. We need a lens that calls for kindness and calls for self-love and calls for, all of those things that we've lacked for so long, and that the pandemic really kind of pushed to the forefront. So yes, coaching. I honestly think that every person in the world should have a coach and a therapist. But that's just me.
Coach and a therapist.
Parenting is hard. There's no guide for parenting. And I think, especially for parents who also have childhood trauma on top of it, I think that it's really difficult to rise above and to break that cycle rather than going into the same destructive cycle of, oh, well, my mother spoke to me this way and her mother spoke to her this way, so I'm going to speak to my child this way. And what we don't recognize is that's just continuing the cycle rather than breaking the cycle. So what I try to do is we have family meetings. And we will just chat with the kids about, what's going on in your life, what's going on at school. Most times it's everything's fine. But after, some investigation, so, we talk for, at least 20 to 30 minutes. It comes out, we found out that my son was actually being bullied. And another student told him to go kill himself. So he came home. And so for my first reaction is always the mama bear reaction. And then my second reaction was sadness for this other child who felt the need to tell another child to do that, because that child, what it says to me is that child is hearing that at home, or that child is surrounded by stuff like that. So what I do as a parent is I then educate my child and say, let's show empathy for this person. And let's also make sure you don't do that. And you recognize that you're loved and that we, want you here, and that would make mommy very sad if that were to happen. And then we went and talked to the school. And I was so blown away by how wonderful the principal was. And the principal, because my kid's the happy-go-lucky kid, always has a smile on his face, always trying to be the joker and stuff. So when he was, when the student said this to him and he was sort of upset, of course, that was alarming. So why doesn't he have a smile on his face anymore? Why is he walking through the hallway like that? And, and of course we know it was because he was upset. But again, I feel for those children who don't have that safe place. They don't have that safe place to go home and say, so-and-so said this to me. So that's why I think coaching is important especially 100% for parents, and for school age kids as well.
Ooh-wee, I agree. Oh my, yes, I agree. I have to say, asking the question why first is extremely important. I just watched a video of a parent that was completely unhinged. She was livid. But the thing is that she came in as the mama bear because her son was being seen as a bully and a woman beater. Okay. And they were crucifying him on social media because of the incident. But here's the problem. Nobody asked the question why. Even the mom, and she admitted, she's like, I did wrong because I came down on him and was like, what is wrong with you? Why would you punch and break that girl's nose? But then she finally asked the question why. And this is why he did it. and he was justified in this. I don't justify men hitting women. Let me repeat. I do not today, tomorrow, or ever justify a man hitting a woman. However, these two young white girls apparently lured him to an area of the school where no one is present, kept telling him, we're going to fight. You going to fight me today. You going to fight me today. And when he attempted to walk away multiple times, they grabbed him by his hair, yanked him down, and held on to him. And so that's why he had to swing to get free. And she ended up breaking her nose. But nobody asked the question why. They only just assumed that he was out there beating a woman or hitting a girl. Kindness and leading with love is what we need. But these kids are exhibiting signs that the metrics that we are measuring against are broken. So for a teacher, Jormel, you are held to a standard to teach the children the subject that you are responsible for, and to actually manage their behaviors. But your number, what you're measured against, is it fair? Do you feel like it's a fair assessment of what you truly do in the classroom? Uh-oh, I think he froze. I think it is. All right.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, okay. I froze in my thought. No, I was just thinking that I think it's about connection. I think when you connect with your kids, they'll perform for you. Kind of like the quote you open up with, people forget what you said or what you did, but how you make them feel. And I remember teaching 7th, 8th grade math, and we were teaching connected math, and all the data and the research was saying that your kids' school test scores should go down this first year. And I pressed down and I introduced Hills Harper book, a letter to my young brother. And we would read this book on Fridays, every 2 weeks. And with my junior high kids or middle school kids, we just had a kind of like this closed door policy of let's talk. And so they really embraced Coach Bell. And it was like, I love going to Coach Bell class. And so imagine this, all research is showing that your score should go down. And I was taking 2 days out of the month just to invest in my kids and just have a safe place for them. And our scores went up. And so I think if the teachers were more concerned about the kids and connecting with the kids, and I don't want to just say totally catering to their needs, and in them building them up confidence and really having individual plans, just like a coach. Like you need to know the strengths and weaknesses of all your players. And so when you have that mindset as a teacher versus just coming in trying to get through a lesson plan, it's just a totally different dynamic in the classroom. And so while being rated by test scores may sound like it sucks, you really connect with your students, it makes a huge difference.
So when you say that your test scores went up, does that mean you got more of passing grades?
Yes, I don't remember the exact numbers, but just say that our previous year we were 58% of the kids were proficient or advanced, and so the scores, the supposedly, reportedly, our results should have went down to low 50s, possibly high 40s. But we tested out, and like over 60% of our kids passed with a whole new curriculum. And I didn't attribute it to nothing I did as far as being just magical math teacher, but I really felt like us having a connection, peer-to-peer, that's what did it. Like the kids perform for themselves and for me, and like, hey, I want to do the best I can. I think we just created that environment.
Nice. Thank you for that. So one, you actually showed that you can just, even as a math teacher, you made a decision to actually connect with your children at a different level. So now you're actually making that connection with them that makes them feel seen, heard, and alive, right? And so when you do that, kids want to perform for you until they figure out they can perform for themselves, right? And I think that this was a very good example of what that looks like. And so, and you actually proved it out. What I was thinking over here. So if 60% are do not read on grade level, if you change just slightly a couple of things that will help improve, that number will go down. So that means that you would make the connection. These kids are struggling with things. So added the pandemic that highlighted all these crazy struggles that they were dealing with, and the fact that now the parents see some things, but they're still not doing some things, right? And that helps to contribute to their lack of motivation or encouragement to move forward. That's from my perspective. So what I mean by that is that your children were depressed before the pandemic. That pandemic exacerbated the situation. But what did you do about it? Nothing. If you don't do anything, it'll stay the same and grow, right? It just doesn't matter. So we have to be careful of what we're doing and how we're teaching this, because when you got 25 kids, if 15 is good enough for you, I'm sorry, you're the wrong teacher for my kid. I need you to be able to reach all of them and not just one of them. And you are the parent, or you are parent number 2. So it's extremely important. So Phil says, let's see if I can put this up here. Okay. When children transition to middle school and get assigned to 7 different teachers, the teachers may not instill the caring and kindness that is emphasized in elementary school when they are assigned to one teacher for most of the day. Ironically, middle school and high school is where the students really need a positive culture amongst themselves so that each can thrive. I agree.
Yeah, I agree with that for sure. My daughter actually transitioned from middle school to high school during the pandemic. And she's a senior now, and she's just now bouncing back from it. Because that's what a toll it took on her. Before the pandemic, she was a straight A student. She was starting to finally come out of her shell and try out for school sports and everything. And then of course the pandemic happened, and she's just now starting to feel more comfortable and not having anxiety and stuff from that. And one of the biggest things was, because nobody really knew what was happening, right, when we were trying to figure out the pandemic. So the support was not there. The support was not there for those transitions, where generally when you transition from one school to another, the support is there, or should be there at least. But she did not have that. So I completely agree with that, Phil.
Yeah.
Well, and one thing I'll jump in and say, as someone who works with more adults than children, is that these skills gaps that develop as children follow us into adulthood, and they follow us into the business world or into whatever profession we go into. So 2 things that I see as a gap that either parents aren't addressing and or the schools aren't addressing: social emotional intelligence and financial literacy. These are 2 things that haunt people in their professional careers if they don't know how to relate to other people, how to have empathy and demonstrate kindness and be ethical in their business practices. But then also they don't know how to financially run their businesses or their own personal finances, myself included. Starting a career in entrepreneurship, I had a mom who used credit cards and racked up debt, and my parents didn't talk about financial literacy with me. My school didn't talk about it. So you learn it on your own. You learn it by trial and error if you don't have anyone teaching you. So these are things that I'm seeing, as working and consulting with a company earlier this year out of Canada called Schoolio, who, developed curriculum for at-home education. If you are educating your children in a stay-at-home capacity, homeschooling. And those are 2 of the modules that they really emphasized. And parents can buy them from them and supplement what their kids are not learning at school or not learning at home. Because if we were not raised to be financially literate, how are we all of a sudden supposed to teach our kids to be it? And I've joked with them, I need to take that class, even as an almost 40-year-old woman, because if you don't learn it foundationally when you're young, where are you just going to magically learn it? I mean, if you're one of those people that can learn anything on YouTube, fine. But a lot of people don't or can't or won't. And so I think these foundational skills or lack thereof follow us into adulthood and into our professional world. So it's something that I'd love to see the schools close a bit with those skills gaps, whether it be something that, is taught in the public school system and or like tutored in a more private capacity or supplemented in a private capacity. But yeah, those are two areas I see as like major skills gaps for adults that went through the education system.
I'm so happy you said that, because I've been saying it for weeks. What we're dealing with these children today, we will see them again later. And if we don't get our crap together now, they'll be like, oh, I remember you, teacher crazy, snatch your tooth out without Novocaine. Oh, I remember you, teacher not so nice. We're going to give you an extra pill that doesn't work for you because I'm an MD now. You got to be careful. So at the end of it, I know that when you come around, I just had an incident. And the person came and they were like, oh, I want to work with Tabitha. And I was like, no, not doing that. And they were like, oh, but, she's changed. Nope. My engagement or interaction with this person made me feel so bad that when we go into a room together, it's a visceral response. And I was like, this is not a good person. We should not be those people for our children. Our children should be excited to see us. Hi, teacher ABC. Great to see you. Loving to be here. Come on, let's learn something. Hi, Mr. Bell. What we learning today? We want to learn about fractions. I'm all for it. Come on, let's do it. We want those kids to be excited about school. We don't want them to be like, oh my God, I have to go to Mr. Bell's class and he never listens to me. He doesn't call on me. It makes me feel like I'm not worth it. That is the thing that's most important to these kids, because when we do these things, we show them we are teaching our children how to be narcissists to begin with, because it's all about them for the first 18 years of their life anyway, at least 16. And then after that, they have to transition into sharing their space with other people. And we're the catalyst of that. So we have to really be careful of what that is. So as we get ready to wrap up, I just want to make sure that we understand that we're here because I love the fact that Nora said, financial literacy. Come on, people, let's do this. We need, if your schools are not offering it, go find someone. And I think I finally have someone for financial literacy that might come and join us. Financial literacy is so important. When I was growing up, you ask somebody about money, that's rude. You never talk about money. Okay, so when it's my time to go use it, how the heck am I supposed to be able to use it? So my daughter comes to me, she says, how much you pay for the house? And I was like, blah, 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 blah. And I gave it to her. And she was like, oh my gosh. And I said, what's the problem? She said, why did you tell me that? I said, why did you ask? I said, you got to be careful asking me questions, because I'll give you answers and you have to be ready to deal with them. But I did it because she needed to understand. Me holding those secrets was not going to help her get her financial situation together ever. So we need financial literacy in the schools. And then the social emotional, what did you call it?
Oh, social emotional intelligence.
Intelligence. There you go. Social emotional intelligence is extremely important, because even sometimes I have it too, where I'm just like sitting there just staring. I'm like, why are they crying? What did I say? But at the same time, there's got to be a level of empathy that is actually provided to them, because that actually helps them, some of these kids, not to fight in schools. So fight the teacher. You know what I mean? Is Jarmel, you still there with us? Have you had any incidents where your schools and your teachers getting, fighting with the teachers and the kids? He starts giggling.
Not personally. I can't say that. Not personally, but with you saying this, I just noticed a lot of times those teachers are quick, or can be quick, to just exert their authority over a child. And so they just try to stay in it. I'm gonna say to a certain degree, try to belittle them and just try to be like, hey, I'm just so much supreme, whether I'm right or wrong. And the teacher may be wrong in a situation, it's still just gonna be like, because I said so, but this is how it is. And so, but thankfully I haven't been in a school where they actually got physical with each other.
Yeah, I think it's a respect issue. And I think that is because coming from home, that was another thing. I don't think that people realize that there are the The level of students who are homeless is significant. And if we take a look at just the homeless population as to what that is, I'm going to tell you that once you realize that some of these kiddos do not have food and are coming to school without food, and the only way, because remember, when the pandemic first started, New York was like, oh my gosh, we have a problem. And the problem wasn't necessarily we're not teaching the kids. The problem is that they knew a very large number of children did not have food at home. And the only place they were eating was at school. So they had to develop a program that allowed them to feed the students, you know, even through the pandemic. So these kiddos are actually dealing with adult real problems at a child level. And then they're being told they have to go to school to learn. Meanwhile, they don't have the right nourishment. They don't have what they need. Oh, I just wrote about this, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If their basic needs, food, shelter, and safety is not met, they cannot learn. They do not have the skills. They don't have the bandwidth. They don't have it. So we have to be mindful of that as teachers and know that not all of us have these problems at home, but some of them do. And that's the reason why their behaviors may not be favorable in the classroom. So I'll go ahead and allow everybody to go do your final, what is something that you want to make sure you leave with everyone and that they know about you. So the windows have changed. All right, Nora, you're first.
Let me see. Well, I want people to know that you can't separate who you are and your identity when you walk into work. So as an adult in the working world or as a child walking into school, you know, you can't separate from your gender identity. You can't separate from your racial identity or your sexual orientation. Like, you bring your whole self to your work. And this is why I talk about being a parent and the intersection of being a parent and being a business person, you know, or I talk about, you know, the intersection of racial or social justice with the business world, or ethics with capitalism. Like, there's all these intersectionalities that we have as people, but then also when we bring ourselves to our work environment or into our school, and we have to be thinking about that. And I think, you know, schools have come a long way since I was in school, at least in being able to recognize and speak to that. But also I think sometimes we hide under the cover of, oh, we're here to educate. We're not here to talk about your identity. We're not here to talk about, you know, your race. And those things are really important to us as human beings. And so we cannot expect people to separate their identities from their lived experience from how they work in either an education setting or in a corporate, you know, work setting later in life. So I think we need to embrace the whole person and everything that they bring, whether they be children or adults.
I agree. Good job. Thank you for being part of this. I think this is good. You gave some really good pointers. All right, Dee, you're up.
All right. So I would just say to the parents, remember that you are a role model for your children. So they will look to you to figure out how to react to certain situations. So if you want them to react to a situation in a certain way, then you need to react in a situation the same way that you want them to react, because they will mimic you. And then when they become adults, then they're going to have issues finding coping mechanisms that really work for them. So I would say if you are a parent, consider do self-work, get a coach, do the self-work, figure out how you can be the best parent that you can be for your children. Because remember, one day your children are going to be the one taking care of you.
Yes, indeed. That's going to be tough. You want me to wipe your butt? No, I'm not going to do it. You know,
My kids will not. I will tell you right now, my kids will not do it. They've already said, Mom, we're going to make sure we make enough money so we can hire a nurse to do it for you.
Also a viable option.
At least they're going to hire a nurse, because some of people were like, oh, so I remember that movie where she was like, oh, I'm here to take care of you, and pushed him in the bathtub and was like, but it was because he had been so mean to her. So you got to be careful what we're doing. People will remember how you make them feel. And if you make them feel like dirt, when that stuff circles around, if they're not kind people, they're going to go ahead and dish it back. And so, Jarmel, you want any final thoughts?
This quote by Winston Churchill that says, "Success is not final, failure is not fatal, and it's the courage to continue that counts." And when I think of that quote and what we talked about today is not putting too much pressure on your kids. Understanding that life really is a journal, and as they have successes, continue to encourage them to go. And if they do happen to hit a roadblock or a barrier or something, like, it's not the end of the world either. And so, but having these resources, this is like so many resources in our schools and our communities that parents sometimes may not know about, but just know that it's not always as bad as it seems. But just having that confidence and that courage to go and ask their principal, their superintendent, their teacher, what are some resources for support? And so he talked about it earlier. There are so many small businesses and entrepreneur companies out here that are willing and ready and able to help our kids and our parents. So feel free to reach out, and we are here to encourage and support. So thank you.
This is pretty awesome, because this is really good. Everybody, when we say certain things, all of our heads just start to nod because we know it to be true. The solutions are out there, friends. Please make it your business to go and find the business that will help support you in your business, right? That's how we look at it. So I'd like to give a special thanks to H7 and Video Grows for helping to support our program. I have greatly appreciated each and every one of you, your perspectives and viewpoints. I do love working with all of you. And so I look forward to our next conversation. Thank you very much for being here. For the rest of you, please make sure to go ahead and connect with these three great people because they have power in what they do. Until next time, have a great one.
Thank you for your time today. We appreciate the support and look forward to you visiting us again next week. Same time, same place. Until then, words are power. Please remember to use them wisely. If you have an interest or like to be on our live show, please let us know and send us a direct message.